What does the Southern Poverty Law Center have to do with ideological subversion? Well, I'll tell you. 2 weeks ago, which seems like a lifetime ago, the Southern Poverty Law Center was indicted by the FBI for wire fraud, false statements, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. And basically, what they were doing was funneling $3 million over the course of a predetermined span of years, I believe starting in 2014, to basically the heads of extremist groups like the KKK. They were basically fueling the extremism that they were identifying by keeping it alive. But what does any of this have to do with ideological subversion? And let's, for a quick definition, let's go ahead and read what we have here. The ideological subversion, often referred to as active measures, psychological warfare, or cognitive warfare, is a long-term strategic process aimed at altering a target population's perception of reality to the point where they can no longer make rational decisions in their own interest. This was made popular or brought to light to the American populace by Yuri Bezmenov, a KGB operative who betrayed the USSR, to tell us all about how the USSR had been infiltrating the U.S. Through our academics and promoting positive ideas of socialism and communism. But the tactic of utilizing active measures or ideological subversion can be applied by really anyone, and so it was absolutely applied by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Not only is the Southern Poverty Law Center's sole mission or primary mission is to dismantle white supremacy, but they have what is called a hate map. It's an interactive map that you can go to, and you can see all of the over 1,000 hate groups that they have listed across the United States. Now, when you start drilling down into these groups, you start seeing that they are basically being completely disingenuous to this entire process. They are basically saying that there is a problem over there, and we're going to show you all the evidence we think we have to support this problem we think you should focus on, versus looking at it from a holistic, unbiased lens. They are fixated on getting to the end result, which is white supremacy bad. And the crazy thing is that 99% of Americans agree, yes, white supremacy bad. In fact, racial supremacy of any kind is bad. We don't agree with it. We don't align our beliefs with it, and yet their entire fixation and their entire focus is on that and aligning it with and conflating it with the Christian identity and the normative heterosexual white male. Now, how do I know this? Well, when you open up the filter to drill down on all of the hate groups that they have listed, first you'll notice that all they do is focus on anti-LGBTQ, anti-Semitism, anti-government, they don't, and anti-Islam, but anti-immigrant, right? But then they have pro-Christian groups. They have, by listing them as, here is their Christian identity, here is their Christian group. There is no Islamic group here. There's no pro-Islamic group here. There's no LGBT groups. None of those groups are listed as hate groups. Only Christianity is listed as a hate group throughout this filtering process. Now, that's not necessarily to say that you can't find LGBTQ or Antifa or a feminist or pro-Muslim groups within that over 1,000 lists of hate groups, but they first have to bother to list them, and secondly, you have to actively search for them by just picking a generic hate group icon. You can't actually, they're not broken down in any other subcategories. And so the SPLC's problem is they don't focus on just the extremists. They focus on everybody that is pro-Christian. They list groups that are just churches, for example, or just Christian groups that have no hate towards them. They simply want to support a family structure, a family unit, a healthy community, all the things that are required to have a successful society, and they put them against the actual extremists and then conflate them and say they're all just extremists and thus they're all hateful. Meanwhile, they say that pro-LGBT groups and pro-Muslim groups, there's no mosques on this list. In fact, the only Muslim group they have on here that could be considered a hate group is the Nation of Islam. They don't have CARE on here. They don't have any other mosques on here. And so you can see that the framing is completely asymmetrical. And it's completely asymmetrical because it's not designed to inform. It's designed to influence and create a false narrative that you believe in. And this is very much along the lines of ideological subversion. So the reason why this is a problem that you should be concerned about is that congressmen and women utilize the findings from the Southern Poverty Law Center to drive their agenda and to influence legislation to pass laws that could affect you. Which is exactly why the FBI was going after them, because they know that their activities weren't to inform, but to persuade, and they determined or discovered that in order to continue to fuel their ability to influence, they had to actually prop up the dying embers of racism that no normal person actually supports. Now, one might think they were doing that because otherwise they would be out of business, right? Because normally everybody would just basically turn away from this level of extremism. But this is where the ideological subversion from an ideological standpoint comes from. The SPLC is a part of a larger coordinated effort to actually dismantle America and Western society. And if they weren't trying to do that, then they would have categories for anti-Christian extremism, Islamism, and far-left militant networks, but they don't. So I can only conclude that they are attempting in their own small way to contribute to the dismantling of American society and Western society as a whole, very akin and very similar to how the IRGC was able to have a revolution in Iran with the help and use of the Soviet Union and left-wing activism and extremism coupled with Islamism back before the revolution, and how they were successful post-revolution. The parallels exist. They are easy to see. You just have to be willing to actually see them and stop being willfully ignorant. Because that is exactly what ideological subversion is counting on.